everything was great. And you showed up again tonight. I am. Yes, my son graduated in December from college, and I was so excited when he walked across the stage. He said, "Mama, don't say that, don't say that." And I just said, and I have that same feeling again tonight because I am so excited, McCormick, because of all of your participation, and it just shows what can happen when we all come together to work for one common goal. Now, I'm not going to take any time because we have three wonderful men that's been working real hard, and I want them to take as much time as they can to roll out what you all have said, so that we can all have that when we leave, to make sure that they capture what we already put out. So, okay.
First of all, Festa, thank you so much for being a great coordinator and for lining up all of the meetings. Just so you know, we were able to talk with over 80 of you, your friends and your neighbors, over the last 3 days in roundtable meetings. We were able to meet with another 60 people in public meetings. And the one here on Tuesday evening, as well as a group of high school students at McCormick High. And so we were able to hear so many stories from so many people, and to me it's been so exciting because this is a place where hope, where optimism, where positivity is high, real high. And I'm not trying to be Pollyanna-ish, because we also heard that years ago you were down at the bottom of the hill, that there were issues, that there were struggles, that folks sometimes weren't getting along. But what we heard from you is that we have made it through those struggles, and we've worked together to work out all those problems and all those issues. And now we're at a point where you can have folks like Tessa come in and take you to the next level. You can have folks like us come in and provide tools that you can use to go out and tell your story to the world, to encourage your brothers and sisters, friends and neighbors, and really share the good news about what's going on in McCormick County. And so what I'd like to do is start the presentation by talking about brand elements. And I'm not a designer, I'm a planner. And guys on the front row are the designers. So I'm going to just have some words on the screen, and I'm going to talk about what those mean. So the first thing really that I want to cover are, these are values. And so values, these are big picture things. Again, based on what we heard from you all, the brand identity for McCormick County is that positivity, diversity, and opportunity are at the top of the list. I can't say how many times I heard people saying things that were positive or optimistic. And I'll be frank, we work in many communities where that is absolutely not the case. Where we sit in these meetings and it's like a therapy session. I don't know if you've ever been to a counselor, a marriage counselor. It's like, he said this, she said that. And it wasn't this way. It wasn't this way. Everyone was positive. Diversity, that second area, that second value. You know, whether it's racial or socioeconomic or history, you got folks who've been here forever, old families, newcomers, to diversity of offerings. I mean, just look at the outside offerings that you have here. There's so many ways to engage with nature. There's so many different types of historical threads that run through this place, representing all eras, you know, from Native American all the way up to cutting edge, where you've got an industrial park that's coming online soon. And that plays into the last piece, opportunity. Again, I'm a city planner, and when I see a downtown like McCormick, and I see the structure, when I see the buildings, when I see the layout, when I see the streetscape, when I see all the hard work that's clearly gone into it, and I see that there's opportunity for additional businesses, for additional improvements, that's all about opportunity. And when you have optimism and diversity and opportunity, good things are going to happen. So I think it's very important that is where we start. And again, this is what we heard from you. I'm not just making this up. The second piece, so we take those values and we try to distill them down into some themes. Now these are the types of things we're going to be talking about and showing you graphically in just a little bit. The first of those is, this is a rural place. We have a lot of small communities that are connected almost by a single highway. There's a rail line that ties everyone together. You see a map, and you see that community A and community B are 10 miles apart, and you think, if you're an outsider, man, it's going to take a while to get there. Well, next thing you know, 10 minutes later, you're there. And I live in Greenville, and it takes me about 15 minutes to go 2 miles to get to work. So it's all relative in a rural place. Again, natural resources and recreation, everything from industry to just, again, experiencing the outdoors. It's crucial. It's really key to who you are. History, culture, the arts, preservation. This is a strong theme that's running through a lot of different organizations, initiatives, activities. We have McCormick enthusiasts who, even if they maybe haven't grown up here, they know the ins and outs of the history of the place, of the people, and there's a lot of excitement and energy behind that. And so we have a lot of great leadership. And then, again, potential. I mentioned downtown. I mentioned the industrial park. Smaller communities where we see great things going on in Mount Carmel, where the furniture store, the folks who own that building, if you haven't been up there lately, go by there and see. They're a bunch of money. Wellington, we sat down and talked with Sarah yesterday, and boy, she didn't know what she was getting herself into, but that's part of why she was able to do what she was doing, because she was optimistic, saw the opportunity, she took it, and she's been willing to put the hard work in and get things done. And then of course the lake, and I know Savannah Lakes, it's had its ups and downs over the years, but we're at a point now where potentially even just in the next few months, something big is going to happen, where we're going to see not just new residents, but we're going to see the type of facility that's going to be able to bring in visitors, accommodate them, and really be able to facilitate economic development throughout the county when it comes to, again, to tourism-based economies, so restaurants, retail, all those experiential things that you can do when you're here. And so all of these things sort of tie into that brand theme. The last thing that I want to talk about is what we call a brand statement. And this is the last thing that we have to cover before we get to the really fun part, before I turn the mic over to my designers. And the objective of the brand statement is to set the stage in prose for all the graphics, all the strategies, all the various brand elements that you're going to see. And so if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read a brand statement. Just be forewarned, it started out very short and concise. It sort of grew over the past few hours. It's kind of a good problem to have, because we noticed, we left this out, we left that out, so we sort of cobbled it in. So anyway, again, if you'll indulge me, I'm just going to go ahead and read this for you. Among the pines of the Sumter National Forest, nestled along South Carolina's freshwater coast, there is a place where the coastline of Lake Thurman welcomes people into our proud state, where opportunities abound around every corner, and where the pace of life makes it so easy to connect with nature, and even easier to connect with one another. McCormick County, established 100 years ago, is this place, and we are proud to call it home. Oh, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. We're not done until Vesta cries. We are a diverse collection of communities connected by a historic rail line that winds its way through our county. The railroad tells the tale of our early years and our connections to the region that surrounds us and fuel our growth. The rail is still helping us grow now in new and different ways, with the Savannah Valley Rail Trail connecting the rail towns of McCormick County, Mount Carmel, Willington, Plum Branch, Clarksville, Modoc, Clarks Hill, and McCormick. Communities with names that evoke the people who inspired the history of this place. I'm blaming Sean. Sorry, Sean. We're gonna fix that. We're gonna fix that. No, but thank you. We are also newer communities like Savannah Lakes Village, where old families and newcomers alike enjoy a lifestyle on the lakefront that defines us. We are a safe and comfortable community to raise a family and enjoy life. We are a place where you can savor your surroundings, where a connection to the natural world is as close as your front door, and a traffic jam means a family of white-tailed deer. Which is true, it really did happen the other night. We are home to beautiful state parks, packed with campsites, golf courses, boat launches, hiking and biking trails, and miles of stunning coastline. Our approachability, ease of access, and welcoming nature help us put the great in the great outdoors. Today, we are building a 21st century economy around industry, the arts, culture, recreation, and tourism. We are preserving our natural and cultural resources for our children and grandchildren, and are working together to preserve treasures like Willington, Thorn Mill, and Price's Mill. We are a vibrant arts community that is nurturing artists of all ages and interests and hosting events to cultivate community pride. We are a place where the pace is slower, the tea is sweeter, the trees are taller, and the gold shines brighter. We invite you to discover why people call us the treasure of South Carolina's freshwater coast. McCormick County, South Carolina, the natural pace of life.
Y'all are fun. Well, thank you, T. First of all, I got a phenomenal staff, and I appreciate everything that they do. I hope that as he read that, even though he carelessly left the community out,
It really was being nice.
and I promise he will be punished for that later. Our goal of those brand statements really is to connect back with you all and say, we heard what you said was important, and we feel like it is essential that those things become part of the brand message. I think a lot of times when we talk about branding, people automatically link branding and marketing, and they automatically link marketing with growth. But the thing that I always try to talk to communities about, this branding effort is as much about preservation of quality of life as it is about growth and expansion. You all are McCormick County's residents. You all carry the qualities that make this place special, and you all are the ones who are going to be really, really angry if we screw it up. So it is important that you all have contributed to the values of this system so that as we tell more people about what you cherish, the more truly makes the merrier. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to talk a little bit about the graphics, taking this message, this McCormick County, a natural pace of life, and building it out into a system. I will say I've had the privilege of working with over 450 communities across the country, 30 some odd states. This is the first time in my entire career that I have ever had the designer of the existing logo participate on my steering committee, which is pretty fun. A lot of times that can get a little touchy. We had a phenomenal conversation last night as we talked about the existing logo for the county. And I think one of the things that is extremely, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of the triangle with the rising sun. Graphically, you look at it, you can tell it was designed by someone who understands design. That's an automatic check mark that a lot of counties don't have. And there were a lot of elements to it. There's almost a reserved simplicity to it that takes a lot of confidence. And so one of the first questions that I asked when I hit the ground was, why are we replacing this? I simply need to know why we're replacing it before we do anything. The answer that I received last night was phenomenal. It was a better answer than I ever could have. I probably couldn't have made it up myself and had it be that good. They said, from a graphic standpoint, there's not anything that's actually wrong about the logo for the county. The problem is, it's existed for a very long time. It's been deployed as only the representation of the government. So now it has come to represent the government. But what we want in this county is an identity that is shared, an identity that is expandable, and an identity that can come to represent the events, the communities, and the overall experiences that McCormick County has to offer. And because of that, we want to introduce a destination brand for McCormick County, something that we've never had, something that can truly be shared by organizations, shared by event organizers, and can be independent of government and governmental action. That might seem contradictory in the concept of branding. I think a lot of times people think branding means make everything look exactly alike. But think about colleges and universities. They have academic logos and athletic logos. And the reason that they do that is, heaven forbid, the Gamecocks don't have a real good season. I can say that because I'm a Gamecock grad. We don't want it to affect admissions and vice versa. So there's always continuity between the two, but then also a little bit of separation. So what we'd like to look at today is we'd like to look at this introduction of this destination brand that has not existed. We started with selecting color palettes. Now I will say a couple disclaimers. Don't ever judge color based off of an overhead projector. This is far brighter and far limier than anything that you would ever imagine. But as you can imagine, we selected 6 colors. We've got 2 blues, shades of blues giving us a nice tone of quality. We've got 2 greens, we've got brown, and then we also have a gold, kind of a really warm gold. Believe it or not, these images actually came from pictures that I took as I went around the county. So when I go through and I take a photo, I have this tool that allows me to measure what colors appear in that photo. And these are some of the colors that were repeated the most often. Well, why does that matter? Well, first of all, it takes color out of the subjective land into the strategic land. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever been through the process of trying to pick a color to paint the wall. But I'm doing that right now for an entire house with my wife, and it is not fun. I did not know that there were that many shades of white. I thought white was white. I found out I was wrong. So being able to know where the colors derive from is very important, but then also know that your color as a connective tool is going to directly tie and complement with the photography that is taken. That makes a lot of difference. Now, the second thing that we began to look at was typeface. Typeface is extremely important, and a lot of times people, they go and they don't really think much about it. They pick what they think is pretty. They'll say, my community is pretty, so my typeface will be pretty. Or, even better than that, my community is old, so I'll select the typeface called Papyrus, because that looks old. Believe it or not, you need a typeface that can be expandable. So we selected 2 typefaces for you. We selected a primary typeface that is a more contemporary sans serif. Now, don't get scared about the word contemporary. Contemporary in sans serif means, I'm going to give you a little design lesson. This is a serif typeface, and this is a sans serif typeface. See those doohickeys? That's the technical term for it. Serif has doohickeys, and sans serif doesn't have doohickeys. That's my South Carolina University education. So what we did here, we selected this primary typeface, this sans serif. Now, one of the interesting things you need to know about a sans serif typeface, it is designed to be content neutral. What that means is when you first introduce it to someone, it actually has no inherent personality. Well, why is that important? It's important because we're building the personality. We're going to use our message to build our personality. A great example, how many of you have computers? How many of you have ever seen the typeface called Helvetica? You know, probably one of the most popular typefaces in terms of being on every computer ever made. Jeep, Crate and Barrel, let's see, Polaroid, American Apparel, Sears, all of their logos are Helvetica. They all use the same typeface. And for the exact same reason. They're communicating a message and then building a personality around it. So the nice thing about that primary is it sets a really great case for expandability. We selected this particular typeface because it has 6 different weight options. So we have a lot of variation built into the single typeface. The second is a serif traditional typeface, and what's really nice about this typeface is every single letter in this typeface has multiple options. So we can make this far more ornate or far more reserved, and you'll be able to see that as the system comes out. So we've heard this message. We've heard this brand statement. We've heard this introduction of this kind of tagline of the natural pace of life. We've seen colors, we've seen typefaces, and then it all kind of comes together into the composition of the logo. And it looks something like this. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about this, and it's very simple. We've taken what's called an icon approach. With this icon approach, it gives us the opportunity to have multiple layouts, which is extremely important. Believe it or not, you do not have to have a picture of a tree and a railroad and people riding bikes and people in a boat and all that other stuff in your logo. You have to be able to have something that you can consistently deploy and tell all those opportunities are available. There's different expandability, different option. You do have an interesting dynamic here because you have a town and a county that share the same name. Luckily, we've dealt with that before. Growing up in Greenville, I know that intimately. Working in Greenwood, dealt with that too. Working in Lawrence, dealt with that too. So that's something that's pretty typical here in South Carolina. But here's one of the things that's really cool, and I want to kind of show you about this icon. When it's in brown, it's a pine cone. When it's in green, it's a leaf. When it's in blue, it's a drop of water. When it's blue and green, it represents the lake. And when it's all 3 colors, it represents the horizon, the new day, the opportunity. So one of the things that we really like about this is all of a sudden simplicity becomes extremely dynamic. And you can use those different variations to build life into this system. So we start to look at expandability. One of the very first things that we do, we need to make sure that any system that we use works. Can't always be in full color. We have to fax things every now and then and photocopy them. So testing it out in one color, testing it out in reversed. But where it really gets fun is when we move into what we call brand extension. Brand extension is taking that as a primary concept and then starting to build a full system from there. Now, obviously one of our big focuses is economic development. So we're going to ease into brand extension with very simple brand variation. Simply being able to have the exact same icon represent the economic development efforts and economic development department. But here's where it gets fun. You also have a visitors commission. So now all of a sudden, if we want to focus in on hospitality with that visitors, we can turn that sucker into a pineapple. You can take it and you can tie it in to have a county airport logo. Now, for those of you who are extremely literal, I understand that jets don't land at the airport, but you know, believe it or not, a plane icon can represent an airport even though you got props in and out. So I've heard all that before. But you remember we looked at that secondary typeface. And this next thing that we're going to talk about is to me where it gets really cool. T mentioned something really interesting in the brand statement, and it was the concept of the rail towns of McCormick. Now, you have this linear node both of historical transportation as well as a linear node that is now offering opportunities for modern recreational opportunities that serves to connect these communities and creates a common origin point from those communities. We'd like to introduce the idea of the rail towns of McCormick as your opportunity to introduce all of these as a collective to visitors to the county. This is extremely important for you to be able to maximize the economic impact of each visitor that you attract here by telling them that there are multiple sites in a singular destination. So if you integrate in that secondary word type, you can now start to see the far more ornate and far more traditional typeface used to represent these communities throughout the county. Now, we went ahead and we took an image of the train because the town of McCormick has solidified that as something that they want to use. But one of the things that is a great kind of next step exercise from here is to be able to give each one of these communities the opportunity to go out and decide what's our icon going to be. What do we want our symbol to be? So you can actually engage community by community in landing on a single icon and creating a series of silhouette icons that can represent these rail towns. Now, we look at the Chamber of Commerce as well. Currently, the Chamber has an extremely attractive logo, features a person in a kayak on a lake. Now, like I said, it's an attractive logo. But what's a Chamber for? Sometimes they do tourism, and that makes a lot of sense with that. Most of the time, chambers also focus on being the nurturer of the current business community, focusing in on networking, creating relationships and connections between the business community, and also helping to become the voice of the business community. So as we go through this, we'd love to show how the chamber could adopt a new brand identity that reintroduces them as this business connection. Now, I'm going to be honest. This isn't as pretty. It's not as pretty as the old one was. But you have to remember, you tell your story in a whole lot of ways, not just your logo. So being able to have a very solid and confident identity allows you the confidence to be able to go out and expand. So that's something that the chamber can kind of think of. I will say one other thing that I just always like to throw out with chambers, because it is universal with chambers. You have the chamber name. Typically the chamber name is some derivation of the Greater McCormick County Area Chamber of Commerce, and so it just expands out and it gets huge. What do we call it? The chamber. So being able to have a logo that highlights the identity that people really relate to. What ends up happening most of the time is the way the logo would be designed is McCormick would be huge, and then County Chamber of Commerce would be really, really tiny. But locally, you're trying to connect with those local members, so being able to highlight who you are is really important. In addition to that, we heard a little bit about the new industrial park. And we want to introduce the idea of a very, very slight variation on how we think about that industrial park. We also want to introduce a visual connection between that chamber and the business community and this industrial park. So we want to introduce the concept of what we're calling the McCormick Eco-Industrial Park. Now, I want to be very clear, because I heard you all talk quite a bit about tree huggers. Tree huggers. This is not a park for tree huggers. So everybody can breathe a sigh of relief. But eco-industrial parks are actually extremely interesting developments that are happening now, where there's actually a focus on creating relationships between the tenants. It might be that you have one manufacturing facility that is producing some sort of wood-based product, and then you have a facility right next to it that's taking that wood waste and creating wood pellets for fuel. Being able to think about synergies and cost efficiencies that can occur in between businesses. It's actually not changing the mission of the industrial park at all. It's simply adding a marketing hook to it. It's adding a reason for people to think about it. Now, in addition to that, in about, 35 days or so, the county is celebrating its 100th birthday. So being able to connect with the centennial celebration and show off your pride, this is the place where it makes a lot of sense to kind of connect back with some of those architectural representations of the county. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to share with you tonight is something that I think is kind of fun. I'm born and raised in South Carolina, grew up right up the road in Greenville. My family has been here on the Sumter and Lee County lines right in the Black River Swamp since the 1740s. I somehow got wrangled up to Delaware. And it was because of my wife, and she's a very special person, as you can imagine, for me to leave South Carolina to go to Delaware. I'm a little homesick, so I have found myself constantly wearing things that have a palmetto and crescent on there. I love the symbol of the state, and when you look at the 50 states, the symbol of South Carolina is probably one of the top 3 in terms of being most popular. But when you get to this part of the state, the palmetto is a little bit scarce. Don't see a lot of those growing on the banks of the Savannah River or Thurman Lake. So what we wanted to do was, we know that you all are connected to the freshwater coast. We'd love to introduce just from kind of a marketing angle, a flag for you all to be proud of. The freshwater coast of South Carolina flag. I could imagine where people would love the idea of having a shirt with a pine tree instead of a palmetto. Have a little bit of fun with it. But you know, that is the kind of thing where I put this up there to kind of illustrate the point that as we engage, we have to think about all the different avenues. Now, it's all well and good if we give the economic development director at the county some really pretty logos to use. But if this stuff doesn't make its way into the hands of the citizens, if the messages and the pride and the momentum doesn't filter down, then we're missing out on our true opportunity. So always think about ways that people can connect with the brand. Baseball hats, t-shirts, all that kind of stuff. And this is truly a way that you can start to break down socioeconomic level, break down involvement level, break down where they work during the day and all that kind of stuff, and truly begin to connect with folks on a consumer level. So with that talks a little bit about brand extension. At this point, I'm going to invite Sean up to give you a couple more examples of brand extension, and then wrap it up with some collateral materials and some advertising.
Ben's a tough act to follow. So during our stay here in McCormick, we've had a lot of people helping us out and guiding our way. Heather's been a tremendous asset for us to show us around the community. I challenged her to find somebody today as we walked around downtown that she didn't know, and she failed miserably. Everybody she waved at or spoke to or hugged or paid her water bill. She made the rounds today while she was giving me a bit more of an in-depth tour of some of the historic sites around town. And one of the things we talked about early on in the process with her was the MAC, and we wanted to take a look at what they were doing currently and figure out a way to update it into the system, but with all of the efforts that they're putting forward, not make any drastic changes. They're doing a lot of tremendous work in this community. I haven't seen this many galleries and workspaces in this small, this size community anywhere that I can think of off the top of my head. And so we've updated it with the fonts that we created for the rest of the system and moved it over to a bit more of an iconic based system so that as classes and offerings change or whether their marketing messages change, they can sort of move in and out of these as opposed to just having a collage that throws everything on the page at once. So it's a very simple update to it, but once you see it with the other identities that we had, it quite surprised me how well it integrates with what Mac has been doing and what we came up with for some of the other branding extensions. And so then we're going to move into some of the collateral here to see how we start positioning these different logo variations that you've seen tonight into marketing pieces that are both for internal use to help the community understand what this initiative is about and what all of this means for them, and it helps you promote a lot of the successes that you're seeing behind the scenes to the people that might be asking questions if anybody's doing anything. So here's a simple business card update for Tessa. And then we have a brochure cover for the Economic Development Department so that whenever businesses are inquiring about land or business industries in town, available like inventories for downtown shops, this will allow her to package them up and give them something that's consistent with the rest of the branding. And then wayfinding, and this has been something that has come up a few times in our visit here, is about signage and wayfinding. And this exercise, when done properly, is quite an undertaking for any community of any size. But this allows you to see pretty easily the ability to take some of your destinations and incorporate the branding and be able to put it out on whether it's the highways or whether it's some of the slower roads, and give yourself markers to indicate where you are using banners or historic street signs so that you can mark off different areas of the community as well as even pedestrian wayfinding, so you can put a map and people can get from the Dorn Mill depot to the courthouse and find their way around once they park, so they don't feel like they have to drive everywhere. Here's some banner concepts to show for downtown. Saw you had a number of banners downtown. You've already got a lot of the hardware, so things like this are easy updates to start showing the community that things are changing, things are moving forward, things are being updated so that they can start feeling that sense of pride that the community is trying to grow and it's trying to put a better face.
We jump in on that too. Street banners are really interesting tools. I think a lot of times people think that they're pretty and it kind of stops there. There's tremendous strategy that can be employed by using street banners. First of all, studies have truly shown that the simple presence of street banners in the physical environment slows traffic. So you can imagine, we've got a lot of different designs here, but I want to focus in on the one that is solid green with the McCormick logo. Now, a lot of times communities would never land on that because they're paying for these. So they sit behind a white screen and they're like, all right, we got to design a banner and we're starting with something that's plain and white, and they over-design it. They put too much stuff on it, they make it too busy. What is beautiful about banners like this is they provide color continuity and rhythm in the environment. Now, can you imagine what it would be like if you drove through the communities and in each community you were greeted with a sequence of these banners with a signature color per community? And if you traveled your way through the county and you saw that kind of continuity, banners now all of a sudden designate place, designate difference in character, and give an equal level of credibility among all communities of the county. So I want to make sure that we point that out with banners. They're not just pretty, they can serve some very, very interesting purposes as you deploy them.
And With the events, also, we don't recommend that you put dates on banners because dates kind of expire once you put a date on it. Even if you put on, the same date every year, the calendar has a funny way of shifting around. But with a centennial, that only comes around once every so often. So it's okay to use dates for certain occasions like that. So then we're going to move into some of these advertisements. And again, these advertisements are to help the community sort of see yourselves in potentially a new perspective. See it from some outsiders that are coming in here and really exploring and looking for those assets that you have that a lot of people take for granted. We talk to a lot of students at the high school, and whenever you talk to them about what is there to do, and everybody's just nothing, it's bored, I just sit on my phone, we got to go to Greenwood, we've got to go to Augusta. They drive 2 hours to go to the mall in Greenville, and I live 15 minutes from it, and I don't go there. So maybe I'm just as guilty of taking it for granted myself, but these advertisements can help you see what other people see when they come to your community and realize that there is a wealth of assets and a wealth of resources here. So here we have the perfect pace for education. And with these advertisements, what we're also doing is showing the different ways these messages can incorporate the feeling and the terminology established in the original tagline. Excuse me? Yeah. Oh, the copy on it is Greek copy. It's just filled in with Greek just to show copy blocks of where text could be put. In the time frame that we have for these processes, we don't have the luxury of going in and creating like large copywritten areas of text, but what we can do and what we try to accomplish with the brand statement as well, whenever you see that, those paragraphs are designed to tell a large story, but it's also created in a way that you can pull those different sections of the brand statement out to speak to the values and the assets that the community have. So those can be dropped into things like these that can be shared on social media. They can be run in like Shoreline Magazine or Greenwood Magazine. So you can take these pretty much off the shelf and start to fine tune and craft the messages for the events or the locations that are featured in them. And they're also designed to where once you understand a little bit more about the template that it creates, you can drop a new photo in, you can drop a new message, and it's staying fresh and it's staying current and updated down the road. So here we have the perfect place, the perfect pace. Naturally artistic, again coming in with the natural feel of the community and wanting to play off of the terminology without focusing strictly on just the outdoors and the natural resources, but being able to show people how those still tie in to the artists that are in the community. There's a lot of artists in this community that love living here because of these natural resources. And so even if you're not a hiker or a biker, the art in your community really benefits from the fact that these artists enjoy living here and choose to live here. Naturally connected, pretty self-explanatory. The perfect place, the perfect pace once again. That's in Wellington. Such a tremendous little, is it a museum? It is a museum, okay. I wasn't sure if they were officially calling themselves that. The way it seems to have just kind of naturally come together for her is just an amazing story to hear. Slow pace, perfect pace. The natural pace of life. Again, just using the tagline, showing the beautiful downtown you have. Always on track. I love the railroad history. I'm a huge railroad fan myself. Perfect place for faith. wraps it up. So I want to thank you.
All right.
Thank the team.
Well, thank you so much. I want to talk to you a little bit about, first of all, these presentations are really, really interesting things to sit through as a resident. Because you got somebody standing up showing you pictures of your home. And like when you first see it, it's like, wait, I've never seen that before. This feels funny. And then one of the things that we hope has happened over the course of the presentations, as you start to see it used, as you start to see it expand, as you start to see it become applied to the images of your home, it starts to grow meaning. It starts to make more sense. That's exactly how a system like this works. It is essential for you to have a true platform for communication, not just a pretty logo. And we really are very, very excited about the concepts that we've introduced. Now, I will say, for those of you that are on our steering committee, you know that Tessa kicked us out of here about 5:45 last night. Everything that you're seeing tonight essentially was created in 24 hours. So we know we missed a couple things. We'll fix the communities that T left out, and he will receive lashes later. But we're very, very excited about the expandability and the potential of this offers. I want to talk very quickly about next steps, and then I want to open it up for some questions and comments, and then we'll get you out of here, because I always like to keep this right at an hour, because I hate being the last thing between somebody and dinner. Next steps, we're going to have a period of refinement where we make this presentation available. We're actually recording this presentation as we give it tonight. We'll be posting that online, making it available for people to be able to listen to, and then offer up refinement and feedback on the recommendations. And I want to be very mindful. I want to share something that we believe strongly in. And it's going to be something that sounds a little funny. But believe it or not, everybody's opinion isn't equal. You all gave an hour of your time to come out and hear the strategy. You had to sit through me drone on and on about typeface. You probably don't care about what a serif is. You might even say, at my age, I went that long without knowing it, and I didn't need to know it. But you heard why we made every decision that we did. And that makes a lot, that is very important in this system. Somebody else could come right along, see a picture of the logo all by itself, be like, oh, that's stupid, I hate it. Not know anything about the strategy, not know anything about the implementation. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all that participated in our steering committee. I want to thank you all that participated in our focus groups and in our public meeting on Tuesday, and then those of you everyone here that gave your time to come out. After that period of refinement closes, we're going to have a very nice, tight set of marching orders from the steering committee. These are the things we want you to look at. We're going to move this thing very quickly to final, and then we're going to package up the entire package. And what that means is we're going to make a style guide. The style guide defines every single aspect of this. It tells what the colors are, defines how to reproduce them consistently, defines the typefaces, tells you how to use the logos, how not to use the logos, and every single thing that we created becomes the county's, becomes the collective of the community. You're never going to have somebody down the road that comes back and says, oh, no, wait, you can't use that. It's yours. All the photography we took, high resolution, ready to go in magazine, is all yours. You've got the toolkit. It's all going to exist online. So with one link, you can share with all these resources with any partner. So that's going to be very, very important in rolling this out. So the goal that we have here is to create a system that you all can use. You can hit the ground running with. You can introduce it to people and then repeat it so much that it truly comes to represent this very special place. And I think the thing that I fight the most is when communities think about themselves, they always go through and they feel compelled to find quote, the most unique message. Worked in a community in Pennsylvania called Linesville. And the tagline that they had was Linesville, Pennsylvania, where the ducks walk on the fish. Wow. What does that mean? And they had a fish elevator there. Everybody from the community would go down and feed the fish, and the ducks were smarter than the people, I guess, and would walk out on top of the fish and eat the bread before the fish could get it. Okay. I use that example to illustrate to folks there's a huge difference between saying something that no one else can say and saying something that no one else wants to say. And if we think about it in more modern brands that we can relate to, you think about Nike. I think just about everybody knows Nike's tagline, just do it. Well, guess what? There's nothing about that phrase that was unique to Nike. Any shoe company could have said it the day before Nike said it. But they said it, and they repeated it, and they repeated it, and they repeated it until now nobody can get close to it. So don't look at uniqueness, look at connectivity, look at power, look at expandability, because that is where true strength comes in the terms of community branding. So with that, we've got just a couple minutes. I'd love to open it up for your thoughts and comments, anything you want to make sure the team hears before we pack it up for this evening. Yes, sir.
I really liked your presentation. I like all the colors, I like all the graphics. I just don't understand what the natural pace of life is.
Well, the natural pace of life, okay, I'll talk to you a little bit about our dynamic of what we were dealing with. When we were digging into the core values, you have some very interesting dynamics that are hard to describe, so you've got to create a phrase that sets the stage but understands we simply can't explain it all in a tagline. You have the opportunity, and one of the things that we heard you all say over and over again is there is something here that is very special in terms of the disconnectedness, the isolation. It's almost like all the connection you need and the disconnection that you need. Like it's that perfect mix of we can actually be isolated if we want to be isolated. We can be silent if we want to be silent. But we also have industry standard high-speed connections. Like you literally have this full spectrum of connectivity options. Connectivity to nature, connectivity to technology, and connectivity to community. And the natural pace of life is different for each and every person. You have some people that are morning people, some people that are night people, some people that are constantly moving, and some people that just kind of slide along. And they're all the perfect pace here. It also gives us that opportunity to kind of reinforce in that tagline the connection to the natural resources as a primary driver with visitor-based growth. So it gives you the opportunity to start to tell a quality of life story. We heard people talk a lot about slow pace. We heard people talk a lot about small town charm. We heard people talk a lot about natural resources and that kind of stuff. But you had to make sure that you could find something that, even if it's just a touch ambiguous on the front end of introducing it, it still has the opportunity to come to mean something more so than we could have made it more clear, but to make it more clear, we would have had to almost include a negative in the phrase. If that makes sense.
Something for everyone naturally.
Well, and I will say, like I said in my presentation, I having done this in 450 communities, I have a challenge for myself every time I do this to make sure that I don't get close to anything that I might have already created. Because I feel like every community deserves a phrase that can come to be theirs. We played a lot with different things that they're very simple phrases that would really hammer it, but they're phrases that communities in your immediate proximity use. Things like I think we could have hit a really solid, at least, ground rule double with something like naturally connected. But that is such a well-used phrase in this kind of arena that we didn't feel like it gave you the opportunity to have a phrase that made a little difference. That being said, if you got recommendations as we go through this refinement process, we are more than willing and open to consider refinement and changes on that phraseology. we as a team know exactly the values and qualities we want to capture. But I can tell you, I would fight to the death if I thought a phrase was perfect. I think that this phrase definitely has massage room. So if you come up with anything that you want us to consider, feel free to pass it on, and because all that stuff is open. The collaboration with community is what takes a concept from us and turns it into something that you can truly love. So think about it. That's why we're going to make this presentation available to you online. A lot of times people need to get out of the meeting. They need to sit down at home on their couch, in their pajamas, and just kind of look about it and think in quiet. So absolutely, we invite you to do that. Yes, sir.
What is the input for giving refinement with those suggestions that you're talking? What's the process?
Can we filter that to you? If you email Thessa at the county.
We get a copy of the logos or the statement or whatever.
We'll make the link of the presentation available to you. We can make that available on the county website, can't we?
And then we can hit a reply, Thessa, and.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, sir.
Also, I just like to say the logo is very nice, and last logo we had like a decade ago. So now that we take it to the next level, that's very good.
Great.
Because you see that logo, you go through cities, you see whole life, different life, kids like that. So that motivates.
Right.
The same thing.
Right.
Motivate us.
Great. Thank you so much. Is there a comment out of you? All right, folks. Well, we did pretty well on hammering in on our 7 o'clock target. I want to thank you all again for your participation this week. I want to thank everybody at the county for all their support. And thank you for the opportunity to invite us into your community and to meet with us with an openness and willingness to consider the outside ideas. We carry a tremendous amount of passion for our work. And I got 5 kids at home. I live in Central Delaware. They range in age. I got a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 2.5-year-old. And I love them dearly. And those of you that have multiple kids probably think the reason I travel so much is because I have 5 kids. But I can guarantee you, leaving my wife with 5 kids does not make my marriage any better. So the reason that we do this is because we love what we do, and we truly, truly believe that right behind your relationship with God, your relationship with family is your relationship. And we truly believe that this is the opportunity to work with people who have the highest passions. That is why we take our pride in what we do. We thank you for your attention tonight. We look forward to seeing all the great things that the county has ahead.
Councilman, I give you 30 seconds. Anything? Chairman?
No, not tonight. I'm gonna say this for Sunday, so sorry you want to come to Mount Level to get it, bro. You won't get it here tonight. You gotta come to Mount Level Baptist Church, 134 Mount Level Church Road. Again, we just like to thank Stelter, Shop, the chamber, the town, as well, and you all, especially the team, for coming, putting this together. We've taken the county to another level. But you take all of what you did tonight and do it in the last 2 days, working together, That's what it takes, working together to move McCormick County forward. We done good in the past, but we just working to another level. And that's good. Thank you. Have a good evening. And we look for you on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Right back.